Do we have our first question?
Hi, thank you for the presentations today. They were fantastic. I'm the chairperson of the Green Space Alliance, and it's very pertinent that we talk about water for food. It's very pertinent and very, valuable. But how about water for urban livability? What's your take on that? What's your perspective as to how we move through this? It's becoming a priority issue. And I'd love to be able to take something back to the people that I speak with regard to what your opinions are.
So Eva, that's a global question to all the panellists?
Basically.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Okay. Who would like to go first? Minister, do you want to have a go?
I can start. So I started the presentation around some of the things that we're doing at a precinct scale, so Bentley and out at Brabham and White Gum Valley, knowing that work that the Water Corporation's been doing in trying to get down our individual water use and has a majority of that is around our outside water use in terms of individual, and so being able to use less but still enjoy this wonderful environment that we have, I think it's something that not many people can articulate outside the industry. I don't think they'll notice it until it's gone, and so having that conversation with the Water Innovation Advisory Group and getting the private sector to have that part of that group, that report that will be coming back to me, is recognising within our agencies that we need to actually drive that agenda harder, and from my perspective be a little bit more bullish, as Kathy said, around trying to utilise the water that we do have in the environment to make sure that we can maintain it. That precinct level demonstration projects, and that's why I like the project that you're a part of, but also the water sensitive cities, because it's practical examples of how to do it. Instead of, with all due respect to the researchers and the scientists in the room, it actually gives us something to demonstrate to industry that needs to come on board, because we need people to be changing the way that they're building our environment now, not 5-10 years into the future. And so for me, it's practical examples that we as government can put on the ground and say, here, this is what the consumer will want, even though they don't know that they want it yet. Because we can all see 10, 15, 20 years down the track where we won't have green public open space. So some of those smaller scale wastewater recycling we're already doing in regional communities. It is easy in those instances because local governments have control of some of that already. In the metro area, there are good but isolated examples of where we've done it, and I'm certainly open to driving that agenda a lot stronger.
Kathy, would you like to
Well,
comment?
of course. Lisa, can I mention Curtin? Yeah. So I'll use Curtin as an example. It's a university. So universities that we've got in WA are big affairs. They're big land spaces with lots of bushland or lots of POS. They're also tend to have been built more or less at the same time, so they've all got ageing infrastructure. So basically they're a little microcosm of everything we're talking about. And they're very interesting because at that scale, which is quite a big precinct scale, there's opportunities basically for just saying, okay, what can we do? Because if you project for Curtin its water use to deliver the greater Curtin master plan, which is fantastic, it is absolutely a beautiful picture of livable and water sensitive city principles. There's a big gap, so same as there is at any scale you look, but there's lots of opportunities for integrating stormwater. So again, instead of putting more pipework, more pits, just pull them up, and you've got your water, different types of water sources. You've got the ability to deliver what you want. You've got the ability to lower your groundwater consumption, because GD, Department of Water, are coming around with those conversations already. We need 20% saving on our groundwater use. So I think there's plenty of opportunities, and they've just got to be very, again, they've got to be bullishly sought, and I see that happening more now when you get, unfortunately I think it's happening a little bit too late at like urban water management plan stage rather than local water management strategy stage. But yeah, if government says this is when we're not going to settle for anything less, guys, then we're all got things to work with. If everyone says, oh, it's all a bit too hard, and there's plenty of those examples, then yeah, we'll have a probably mixed bag of things going forward.
Paul?
I'd just like to mention a piece of research that CSIRO did around urban canopy in Melbourne. So it basically looked at parts of Melbourne where the canopy was gone, and driving water and availability of water is one of the things that affects that. So where the trees are all gone and where they're not. And by doing spatial correlation, you can see that the average summertime temperature in the places where there are no trees, and this is not rocket science, right? But you know, we make it look like it is. But anyway, correlation coefficients and all that stuff. Anyway, it's way hotter. So 5 to 7 degrees hotter. And then we looked at human mortality during heat waves. Significant decrease in the number of people dying during heat waves because the trees are still there. So there's a huge, so again, the idea of water rippling out into covering all kinds of things like human health is real. And that's a great example. So thanks.
Thank you. Who else has got a question?
While they're thinking, Mike.
Oh, sorry, hang
Oh,
on,
no,
there's
we've
one
got
over
one
there.
here.
Ross George, I know you too. How about that? Use the mic.
2 out of 2, Michael. Well done. I'm Ross George from private group AFS Agriculture. I'd just like to ask Dr. Meney, in your opinion, what are the biggest policy obstacles to more use of recycled water in WA?
You would pick on me. I'm meant to be the industry member here. Look, I think it's a good question. One is that, you know, it doesn't, the way we've got our existing structures, we've got big networks, we've got big wastewater treatment plants, the whole thing is centralised, distributed, dispersed everywhere. It's very, very difficult to come in and kind of unplug that. I think when you're in more agricultural and horticultural areas, it's easier because, and that's why I suggest if, you know, we have the EPA, and there's surely somebody here from the EPA today, but it really irks me to read the EPA saying, oh, good, ocean discharge approved for, say, Bunbury, and we commend everybody on this wonderful piece of work. It's just nonsensical. Why don't we just say no ocean discharge and give the private sector the opportunity to purchase that water, put it through treatment systems and give it back to agriculture? So they are, again, it's access to the existing infrastructure. It's the how you get those participation models and co-sharing models between the existing utilities and new ones wanting to come in. It's collaboration, like the Minister was saying, getting all the people sitting around a table going, right, not should we do it, but how should we do it, and lock the doors and we're not leaving until we've kind of all agreed. Because I think there's a general willingness. I don't think we don't, and I think all the surveys show, and Water Corp have been so surprised that nobody really cares about recycled water here. We all want it. So we don't have that kind of Queensland reaction. We don't think it's evil. We think it's a resource. I think most of us are far more pragmatic about the way we view it. So I think it's just about, again, getting out the maps and working out where are the logical wins from the big infrastructure and treatment systems we've got, where are the smaller measures, how do we integrate them, stopping this idea that you do comparisons of, oh, let's not do rainwater or stormwater or wastewater. Oh, we need to do this one because it's a bigger bang for the buck, and let's not do this or that or the other, which is a constant way that business case assessments are done here still. Let's just say they're all part of the picture. If you want a little organic garden, you just need a water tank in your home, and it doesn't really matter whether it doesn't rain in summer in Perth, you've got enough for that garden just by having a tank. But you will still hear everyone saying, oh, rainwater tanks in Perth don't really make sense. Oh, stormwater harvesting projects, they don't make sense. So again, it's just got to be, how do we make them make sense? Not, let's not do them because they're not as good as if you do them in a high climate rainfall environment. They're all part of a mix. If that was helpful.
I guess that was my question. What about capital expenditure, for example?
Well, again, I don't know. Let's hear from some of the bigger private sector players on that one. But yeah, as I said, a lot of them bring deep pockets, patience. You know, when Virgin came in, that was into a market that was incredibly reluctant and resistant to change. They came in for the long haul, and I think the people in this room today are there too. They've got access to funds. Water Corp are using now Lloyd's Bank for PPP. There are people there with interest. If there's an economic positive outcome, people will come. if they know about it, basically. So I think you'll get investors, the same as the Minister described. People put their own money into schemes when they can see the benefit.
Minister, did you want to make a comment?
Well, I think I've certainly had the conversation with the board and with the executive at Water Corporation about what would happen if there was a cliff face and no longer was it acceptable for us to have wastewater being discharged into the environment. I think the majority of the community actually believe that there is a resource there to be used and that they would like to be seeing it used. So there are small examples around the state where we are trying to encourage that to happen. Obviously, some of the projects that I talked about today. So the next part of the challenge, as Dr. Meney has said, is trying to get it in the Perth urban environment. So if you have concepts, ideas, there is a Water Innovation Advisory Board. The Department of Water has put a space on their website and thrown open the doors for those sorts of conversations to occur. It is a genuine offer because I can see, as everyone in this room, that there will come a time where that environmental approval will not be given. So at the moment it's there, but there is a time where it won't be, and we should be planning for it well ahead of that moment.
Other questions for the panel? Here we go. Thank you very much.
Hi, Matt Walsh from the Water Corporation. Dr. Hardisty, you talked about the energy, water, food nexus. Given that the reform in just one sector is difficult enough, are you seeing any examples of where that tripart reform is actually happening, and what sort of barriers and challenges are you seeing?
Yeah, look, thanks, Matt. The plain fact of the matter is it is a huge challenge, and I mentioned that I think, as we all know, in the international arena, Australia is widely known as being right at the forefront of what's happening, but we're still very early in that journey. So I can't really point you to any actually really good examples of where that's happening to a degree that I would say is even incipient. We're identifying, and many workers in the world are identifying this as a real challenge for the next decades, and we're right at the beginning. So I'd love to be able to report some on the ground wins there, but it's all very formative.
Down the front here with a microphone for somebody. Thank you. So Paul Farrell from NGIS.
Mike, you get a reputation of knowing everybody this way. A question to probably Paul and Mia, and it's a question about awareness of the challenge, because I was actually struck by some of the presentations there. We've done some work with climate change, and we published a site in April last year, just merely publishing where sea level rise is going to be in about 80 years' time. And overnight, maybe in sympathy of the polar caps, we had 2 million hits and the site melted, basically. Looking at some of this stuff, it seems so stark, yet it just doesn't get the attention that something like sea level rise does, even though it's maybe being caused by the same sort of things. So I'm just wondering why. Why doesn't it get the attention that something like sea level rise does?
It's too big. It's too big. It's too big for people to comprehend. And so people start to notice things when it starts impacting on their individual lifestyles. We started too late to respond. So the Regional Estuaries Initiative, essentially when I became Minister for Water, I was the Minister for Fish Deaths. Every 5 minutes I was dealing with horrendous numbers of dead fish in estuaries down in Busselton, which is one of our prime economic and tourism spots in the state. And that was a symptom, not a way too late down the path for us to have been able to convince anyone that you needed to do the preventative work up front. It's a little bit why we're trying to stop getting to that point with the funding that we've provided for the other 6. So people don't comprehend until it's on their doorstep, I don't think. And again, I have this conversation with the department regularly. We need people that are good at explaining very complex and enormous systems of science in a way that individuals on the ground can say, well, how can I tap into and understand that? Now, there are some very good people in the world that do that, but by and large, and I have some very, very good friends that are PhDs and scientists and work in all sorts of really exciting spaces, but our ability to comprehend things as a community when we're rushing around dealing with everyday life about things that we think aren't on our doorstep today and can't see impacting us immediately, it's human nature. It's human nature, and that's what I say. We need to be doing this collectively ahead of the curve and get better at communicating some of those things. Another example of that is that there's a large number of people that have bought properties down in the southwest. They have water courses flowing through those properties. No doubt most of them have bought them with a view to subdividing at some point in the future. I currently have people coming to me and saying, you must release water out of the dam down. We've always had a flowing stream through our property. It's gorgeous, it's lovely. We go there on weekends. And that dam at the end of their stream is actually filled with desalinated water that we've made so that we can continue to have taps turning on and toilets flushing and showers. What isn't well understood is that there is no environmental flow left in some of those streams down there. That has impacted on their lifestyle today, and yet we're still having that debate about releasing water for environmental purposes, which we do, but we're not doing it just simply so that they can have a more affordable and better outcome financially to subdivide their block. That's when you'll start to get people starting to realise that the hotspot that's sitting over the southwest, because in their lifetime, that water's disappeared out of their environment. But it's too late. It's too late for that. You've actually got to start doing it right now.
Paul, you've got the last word, I think. Our time is almost up.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Why do people make the decisions that they make? How do people decide what view to take on a complex issue? This is at the heart of a lot of the research that we and others are doing. And there's some really interesting findings that are probably very intuitive when you get at them. So take sea level rise / climate change. We've known about it for about 45 years. And scientists who've been working on it reckon that if you give the people knowledge, the facts, they're smart enough, most of us, to just look at the facts and make a deduction and come to a view. Even if it's a complex problem, the basic facts can come to a view. But that's not how people make decisions. They make it actually based on three things: knowledge, rules, so the rules that govern their society or their group or their milieu, and values. What's their worldview? How do they think about the world? What do they value? You can think of it as sort of a political worldview kind of construct. And all three of those things come together to make up their position on an issue, complex or not. And so what scientists have done, they figure, oh, people aren't getting climate change, so we need more K. There's V, R, and K. We need more K. We just give them more K, more knowledge, better reports, videos. We're doing it the wrong way. We need slides, interactive games, more knowledge, and they'll get it. And we've not recognized that the values and the rules are 2/3 of the equation, and that you have to engage with people's worldview and the rules that govern society and have conversations on those levels to activate the facts. And that's why complex issues like this, you can have the same facts being presented to a very, very highly intelligent group of people, let's say this room, and you have divergent views based on the same facts, which is what we have in Australia around climate change and water and complex issues around sea level rise and everything else. So we got to do a lot more work around the other two pieces.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the panel. Shortly I'm going to invite Murray Cook to come and close the proceedings, but just in summary, thank you very much for spending time with us in Water Week. It's a big week for anybody who works in the water space, because it is one of those rare opportunities to draw people's attention to something that is so vital and yet so complex and underpins so much of what we need to do and aspire to do in this community and in this terrific state of Western Australia. I'd now like to hand over to Murray Cook to come and close proceedings. Thanks very much, everybody.